had quite a few agents reach out to me in the last couple weeks, disappointed with the way last year went. Some people is exactly what they wanted. Most people they weren't happy with the way that it went, or they're not happy with the way the last month's gone, or they're not happy with the way the last name whatever it is. And so I I'm trying to get people to reframe their thinking a certain way. I figured we might as well just address this here because I've been talking to so many agents about it. Because some of you might still be disappointed, but you may not have just reached out and told me anything, and that's okay. If you're disappointed in something, that's good. And you should let yourself feel that. And you should let yourself be disappointed because nothing is more frustrating than the person that says that they want to get somewhere and is not frustrated with the way the results are going. Okay. One thing that was always a hard thing for me to handle, and this goes back to sports, is being on the bus on the ride home from a football game or from a wrestling tournament or from a track meet and everybody just being totally cool and happy. It pissed me off. I could not believe it. Here you were, you lost. You didn't win, and you're happy. If you actually cared, you would be mad. You'd be disappointed. You'd be trying to figure out what you could do better. Right. So if you're having a moment where you're like, man, I'm disappointed in this. Like this last month was not what I wanted to be. This last week was not what I wanted to be. The last year was not what I wanted to be. Whatever it happens to be, if you're feeling that feeling, right, understand that that is a good thing. Allow yourself to feel that pain because that is the discomfort that's going to cause you to make changes to get to where you want to go. If you were totally satisfied, you felt zero pain, you didn't actually like feel any discomfort, it's not going to get better. Okay. We like it's all I feel I one thing that I've never enjoyed, and I've had moments where I've had to regress, right? But like most of the time, the self-help world is all about feel good. Everything's got to be hunky dory, right? Like you're no, you're a worthy human and individual, even if you're not getting results, right? And there's a time and a place where you do need to remind yourself of those things. I'm not saying there's not, and I've definitely had my what do you want to call it, emotional times where I've needed that. But most of the time, if you feel like there's a disconnect between who you are and who you want to be, and you're unhappy with what has happened there, let that soak in a little bit. It means that you care, and that's a good thing. Like if it's they're like, but like if you have something that you've been competitive in, and you have that moment where you did not get what you felt like you deserved, you know that feeling. And a lot of people will kind of just tell you like, "Hey, it's okay." And it is okay. Life moves on, right? Like there's other things. However, it's also okay for you to feel that feeling. I hate the idea that you have to be um that people think that like you have to be a good loser. Right now, I'm not saying be one of those people that throw a temper tantrum, throw your headgear, right? Like get into fights over it. But what I am saying is being a good loser, come on, let yourself be disappointed and then figure out what you got to do to do better. And if you're unhappy with your results, right, it's not a bad thing to be like, man, the results weren't what they want to be. Every year I've been here, I've never been happy with my results. To go back, 2019 did exceed my expectations in some ways, but also I fell short on 50% of my goals. But most of the time, like that dissatisfaction is a good thing. But spend some time with it. Let it soak in, let it burn, let it make you unhappy, and then make the changes to not be that in that situation again. Right? There's only two times that you're going to make a change in your life. You're going to feel so much pleasure or so much pain, right? Some people come here and they're like, oh man, we're just going to see how the sales job works out. But then they win 3 or 4 or 5 incentive trips and all of a sudden they're paying off bills and they're getting to where they want to go. And they feel so much pleasure that they're just like, I'm never leaving this place. Or some people just are so broke and like so tired of the status quo and so tired of being that those people in their family that like never get amount to anything that they are forced to come into a career like this, and they're forced to make big things happen, right? And you got to ask yourself, like, are you coming in for pleasure or pain, or both, right? Both can happen. But the discomfort is the pain. Let it soak in, and you let it propel you forward. That's what I'm going to tell you guys going with this week with, right? The only thing that's going to change the outcome of the future, protecting families, hiring agents. That needs to be the focus in a short week like this. What do you got to do to get one of those two things to happen?
I didn't hit the goals that I wanted to hit this year. But when I look back at my VPF, I worked more hours than I've ever worked before last year. I did more demos than I've ever done last year. My closing percentage was higher than it's ever been, 91%. I personally sold more than I did the previous year. So when I look at the fact that I didn't end where I wanted to last year, I look at the controllables. Did I do what I say I was going to do? Yep. Did I end where I wanted to end up? No. So one of a couple of things was off. Number one, the competition, right? Competition was better than I expected it to be. Number two, some things that were outside of my control. I hired more people than I've ever hired, but we also pushed through less people than we've ever pushed through. So we had onboarding issues last year, which is outside of my control, right? So it's like, what could I have done? Right. So looking at the plan and making sure that you executed the controllables that you said you would. And if you did, being upset about losing is a waste of emotional energy, in my opinion, because it's not like you fucked up. Right. However, if you're not where you wanted to be and you look back and you didn't do what you set out to do and you didn't execute the game plan, yeah, you should feel shitty, right? You should feel like, oh man, I messed up, because you did, right? You didn't do what you said you were going to do. So you need to step in and step up. If you're like me, all you have to do is up the workload because the competition's getting better. Guys, I sold what I sold like 5 years ago when I missed the top 140 by 7 spots. And I only missed the top 140 by 7 spots. This year, selling what I sold then, I'm number 246 or something. I'm 100 spots off. The competition's getting better and better and better every year. And that has to do with leadership and personal production. So I got to up the ante going into this year and still execute all of the game plan. But I also have to look back at what happened personally. I moved. Then after moving, I moved my office. I got married. I started homeschooling my kids. So then when I look at what my life did and I go, okay, could I have executed more than I did, even though I executed the plan? In all truth, not really, because of how much I had going on personally, right? This year, the goal is that we smash. And so there's nothing on my calendar that is a big personal thing. And if I am not where I want to be when a personal thing starts to come up, like Kelly and I want to go to Canada this year for her birthday, if we're not on goals, Kelly already knows we're going to push that trip back a couple of weeks until I catch up on goals. Then we can go on the trip to Canada, because the business is going to be the priority this year, not personal, because last year personal was priority, even though I executed all my controllables. So did you execute the controllables you set out to? If not, it's your fault. If you did and you still didn't make it, don't beat yourself up. Just understand that you're playing a game with a higher level of competition, and it's going to demand that you bring more. And that's the point of competition. That's the point of being in an open marketplace in a capitalistic world, is that I may be awesome and I may be really good at my job, but the market doesn't care. If somebody else is out there working harder, hiring more, pushing more, onboarding through, selling more, they're going to win. And so if I want to rise to that occasion, I have to increase my training level. So I agree with Devin, but don't beat yourself up if you executed the plan. Just make a bigger plan and execute that one. If you didn't execute the plan, you should be upset. You should be upset with yourself, and you should get over being upset with yourself so that you can win and not emotionally get your way this year.
Yeah. There's, thanks for all that in, John, because that reminded me of something else I was going to say about this. when it comes down to it, it's like you got to be good at feeling the disappointment, like I said, but then you got to be good about taking action to let it go. Right? Like I said, let it be the fuel that like ignites the fire and then move forward. Because if you're constantly like beating yourself up when you're out there selling and doing that kind of thing, like that doesn't serve you. Right? Like this is a conversation that you have to do where you just like sit down, look yourself in the mirror and have a conversation with yourself and then move on from the conversation. Right? Talk to your soul, right? Journal, meditate, talk to the mirror, do what you got to do to feel the, like I said, feel the pain, and then let it go and move forward, right? And like John said, like competition is a good thing, right? Like you know, going back to sports, you do JV and maybe you're the absolute best at JV, and then you move up to varsity and you're doing your absolute best, but you're getting destroyed. But what happens if you do it long enough? You learn a lot from the failure and you start leveling up and you start getting better. And then right when you feel like you're at the very top in the varsity, maybe you try it out at the college level. And then you see somebody like, again, I'm going to use a name that most of you probably won't know, but you got somebody like Kel Sanderson who went 159 matches undefeated and then tried to go to the Olympics and he did lose. He didn't. Now he figured it out and then he ended up winning the gold medal, but he didn't take first to get to the Olympics, right? The competition is another level every step up you go. And every year the competition is going to be bigger and the competition with yourself is going to be bigger, right? The euphoric rush of winning, the feeling of that doesn't come from hitting the same goals. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. If you sell 200,000 last year and you come back in and you sell 200,000 this year, it's going to be cool, but you're not going to feel as good about it. Sell 201,000, all of a sudden you feel better, right? Winning is an addiction, and it's one of those addictions, just like caffeine, just like everything else, where it takes more of it the next time to get the same high. And that's what's fun about it.